everyone, and welcome back to the F2 show by Inside F2. Goodness me, just when I thought Formula 2 couldn't get any more crazy, it delivers in spectacular fashion, doesn't it? Aron and Omi with me to discuss all of the drama from Formula 2 in Qatar this weekend. And Aron, how about that for a penultimate round of the season? Absolutely crazy, wasn't it? Unbelievable weekend of action, and action all the way to the very last lap of the feature race.
It's exactly what you want from any motor racing series. You want to be left kind of unsure as to actually what's going to happen next. And throughout that feature race, we were never quite sure what was about to happen, because there was a battle for the win. Bearman was out of position leading it. When was he going to stop? Was there going to be another safety car that would change the complexion of things again? It just kept on giving. And when you've got a series that's like that, how can you not love it? Honestly, how can you not?
I completely agree. That's, I guess, why we're all in love with Formula 2 and watch it week in, week out. Omi, did you enjoy it as much as us? It was, a crazy weekend of action, wasn't it?
How do you not enjoy it? That was absolutely unbelievable. Loved that weekend. From start to finish, really. It continued to deliver shocks and some amazing performances as well. And it's given us some round coming up in Abu Dhabi in terms of the championship fight.
It definitely has, isn't it? Looking forward to that. We're going to talk about that in a bit. We've also got, we're also going to discuss impressive performances by the rookies. Lots of impressive rookie performances this weekend. Ollie Bearman's sprint race win, Zane Maloney's legacy in Formula 2 as he departs the series. But only one place to start, and that, of course, is that three-way battle for the win in the feature race between the top three in the championship as well. And it kept us right on the edge of our seats all the way through, didn't it, Aron? And it was Paul Aron that came out on top after a penalty for Gabriel Bortoleto. Paul Aron was the 17th different winner this season out of the 22 drivers who started the season. It's unbelievable, isn't it? And our high-tech as well become the 11th and final team to win a race in Formula 2, which means every single team has won a race this season. There's so much to talk about, so much to get into.
There is so much there. But first of all, it's a critical victory for Paul Aron because it keeps him in the championship hunt. And he was dominant all weekend. I mean, when have you seen someone be so dominant in Formula 2? He was just... Every time he did a qualifying lap, you just knew he was going to go to the top of the pile. And he did. And it was just one of those... It was a bit like a throwback to the early part of the season where he was just at one with the car and they were just working off the same hymn sheet. And he could just deliver. And I think these drivers are so talented. When they get in that situation, they're so used to winning by that point of their career. It just happens. They're not necessarily used to trying to fight their way with a car that's not working for them. They're used to being at the front and dominating and winning races. And that's what we saw from Paul Aron. He's got that talent. He's now obviously secured a seat as a reserve role as with Alpine for next season. Obviously, Ollie Oates went from high-tech to Alpine Formula 1, so using his connections well there. But this was a really timely performance in terms of his championship picture. It keeps him in the hunt going into the final round. He's 25.5 points behind Gabriel Bortoleto, 39 on offer. So think Kimi Räikkönen 2007 vibes. He's going to come from way back, and he could potentially steal it if the other two trip over themselves. But what he's done there is in Qatar is show he is a phenomenal talent, because that was a difficult circuit to master. We saw a lot of drivers make mistakes, have spins, have problems, but he was the master. Absolutely brilliant. And I think towards the end of the feature race, he knew he didn't need to pass Bortoleto. He just had to shadow him, and he did everything he needed to do. Little bit of luck with the penalty, but if you're that good, sometimes it's good. Sometimes it's better to be good. Sometimes it's better to be lucky than good.
Yeah, definitely. Omi, what did you make of Paul Aron's performance this weekend? As Aron said, right from practice and right from qualifying, it was just lap after lap, consistently, half a second at points ahead of his nearest rival. It was quite a convincing performance on the weekend, as Aron's already said, that he was announced as an Alpine driver. It's, timely, return to form, I guess, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And since practice, he did really look like that he was going to be the driver to beat this weekend. Followed it up with an extraordinary qualifying performance. But then the question was put, would he be able to convert it into victory? He'd already taken pole 3 times previously to his pole position this weekend here in Qatar. So the question was put to him. He lost it off the line, but then, of course, he just remained in that battle. And he got lucky, but he put in a fantastic performance. He remained in there. He went side by side with Gabriel Bortoleto, risking it through the second sector as well. So Aron took all the risks. He got his reward, and it was just a phenomenal weekend. And he really was the driver to beat, and he nailed it on what was always going to be an unpredictable Formula 2 weekend.
Yeah, definitely. So that's Paul Aron becoming our 17th different winner. There's 17 winners. That is crazy, isn't it? It's such a competitive season in Formula 2 this season. Should we talk about the other two? Gabriel Bortoleto, Isaac Hadjar. Yeah, crazy weekends for them both. Should we start with Gabriel Bortoleto, who, crossed the line first in the feature race, but doesn't get the win because of a penalty, Aron. What were your thoughts on the penalty? It's obviously it's the right decision by the rulebook. Did you think it was a little bit harsh, or did you think that's a driver mistake? I say mistake. For me, he has saved himself a drive-through penalty in that instance, which would have been a bigger penalty than the 5 seconds. So he's done the right thing there, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those where it's just bad luck in terms of the way things have worked out. Ironically, on a weekend where stewarding and race direction was called into question, that was about the only thing they got right this weekend. So, yeah, I mean, it's you feel bad for Bortoleto because it obviously happened very quickly and quite late, and he was committing to the pit lane, realised what the situation was, and did everything he could. You can say, yeah, it's VSC, and he's rejoined safely. No one was put at risk. And I know there was a situation a few years ago in Hockenheim in a Formula One race where Lewis Hamilton was entering the pit lane, got the call to stay out, and just sort of bounced across the grass back onto the track while it was starting to rain. So the stewards let him off that day. So, yeah, you shouldn't really be crossing that line. But obviously, if the pit lane is technically closed, you don't have another choice. And you don't really want people driving through the pit lane for no reason. So, yeah, I can see why the 5 seconds was given, because he shouldn't be crossing that line. Once you pass the bollard, you almost have to commit to the pit lane. But maybe you sort of look at the situation, actually judge it on its merits. What happened? Do we need to give a penalty? Yes or no? I mean, I've not got a problem with the 5 seconds. It was a clear foul, as they would say in football. But I thought Gabriel did a great job in managing his race from there. He didn't lose his head. He kept himself at the front, tried to build that gap, and only lost 2 places. So, it's not terrible. He has only lost a little bit to Isaac Hadjar over the weekend. He's still at the lead of the championship. So he has the control. He has everything in his destiny heading into Abu Dhabi, but the pressure is on now. It could have been a big swing in his favour. He could have had a much more comfortable gap. Not entirely comfortable, but, a bit more of a cushion heading to the final round. But, it's made everything much more exciting for us watching, hasn't it? So, let's get the popcorn, lads. It's going to be a banger in Abu Dhabi.
I'm definitely going to have the popcorn out next weekend in Abu Dhabi, watching that from the sofa, definitely. Only half a point separating Hadjar and Bortoleto. Hadjar, the chaser, he's closed the gap this weekend. A bit of an up and down weekend for him. Obviously, a great finish to the feature race. Strong pace meant that he obviously gained that P2 from Gabriel Bortoleto. Had a shot at winning the sprint race and ended up spinning and losing those points. He finished P4 in the end. If he hadn't have spun, he'd actually go into the finale leading the championship. So, could that be costly? And, just how did you summarise Isaac Hadjar's weekend?
A very interesting weekend. Of course, it did look like, straight away, he didn't really have the pace as Aron or Bortoleto. Meaning that we went into the sprint race with him needing to perform and him needing to grab a lot of points as well. Of course, he had the lead for a very long time on those medium compound of tyres, found himself, of course, losing it with Bearman going through as well. But then, of course, that spin. Had he not had that spin, as you mentioned, he would have been in the championship lead. That would have been extra crucial points, which in this championship, every single point is going to matter, as we usually get in Formula 2 as well. So it could be very costly, but I think the great thing for him is, with the pace that he showed at the end of the feature race, I think he can take a lot of momentum from it, because I think we had Monza, we had Baku, 2 rounds where it was swinging to Bortoleto. It was Bortoleto finding momentum and Hadjar starting to struggle a little bit. While when we left Spa, it looked like it was Isaac Hadjar who was your championship favourite as well. So it all swung, and it looked like that he really couldn't recover the pace that he had earlier on in the campaign. So that feature race, I think, will incredibly help him in trying to recover and trying to find that pace, because he will need to be near Bortoleto. He will need to be fighting with Bortoleto come the races, come the 2 points available in qualifying. So that the boost that he might get from the feature race, being able to beat his rival in that, might definitely help him win this title.
Yeah, let's wait and see. It is going to be thrilling going into Abu Dhabi. I'm so excited for it. Aron, who wins it? Hadjar, Bortoleto, Paul Aron with an outside shot. Who wins it?
I think Gabriel Bortoleto will get the job done. I think he's shown enough across the season to show that he possibly has the most composure out of the 3. Paul Aron probably, I think if he was closer, would be, a stronger candidate for it. Obviously, that goes for itself, because obviously he'd have more points. So, but yeah, he's relying heavily on Hadjar and Bortoleto really stinking the place out and having a terrible race, especially in the feature race, because that's where 25 points are up for grabs. He needs them to have shocking qualifyings, no points in the sprint. He needs to bag a few points himself. He needs to win the feature race, probably from pole position, and he needs some bad luck to fall to both Bortoleto and Hadjar. So a lot for Paul Aron to rely on there. Hadjar, he just needs to out-qualify Bortoleto to start with. Be in front of him on the grid on Sunday, because then you're in and around him on the sprint race on Saturday, and you can just make sure you finish ahead. Essentially, that's all you have to do. If the situation is that they score no points in the sprint, just finish ahead of the other guy. But if they're looking too closely at each other, that's going to open the door for Paul Aron. So,
Definitely.
Yeah.
Can you imagine if they come together? Can you imagine if Bortoleto and Hadjar take each other out and then Aron sneaks through and wins the championship from so far back?
I genuinely think only dogs will be able to hear Alex Jake's commentary if that happens. He may actually combust with excitement, and
I think
Alex Brundle
will
have to solo it.
Yeah, exactly. Alex Brundle takes over the lead comms. Omi, Bortoleto, Hadjar, Paul Aron, who wins it for you?
Oh, well, such a hard question. But from what I've seen from both of these drivers, of course, Bortoleto delivered it over a full campaign last season in Formula 3. Hadjar was close to doing so the year prior as well, but we did start to see a few mistakes. And I think this season we've also started to see a few. So with that in the back of my mind, I think I am going to have to give it to Gabriel Bortoleto as well. And especially from what we've just seen as well in the latest race, in one of the latest races in Qatar as well. But it just could go any way. That's the enjoyable thing about it. It really could go to either, and I wouldn't even be surprised if it goes to Paul Aron if Hadjar and Bortoleto take each other out. It would be the most typical Formula 2 moment ever, and it would basically end the season how it's really been all throughout.
Yeah. It would, wouldn't it? It's so exciting. I'm really excited for this weekend. Let us know in the comments who you think is going to win the title. Will it be Gabriel Bortoleto? Will it be Isaac Hadjar? Or will it be Paul Aron? Bortoleto, I think, is probably the favourite. He's the form guy going into this weekend. 7 point scoring finishes in a row. He hasn't been outside the points for 7 races, which is, quite something. Isaac Hadjar potentially with an RB seat up for grabs by the sounds of it from the news that circulated post-Qatar. So, yeah, so many talking points, so many storylines as we head into the final round of the season. But let's move on. Let's not just talk about the top three in the championship and the top three in the feature race, because there was so many other stories up and down the grid this weekend. Let's talk about some of the rookies. Ollie Gerfer, P4 in the feature race. Dino Beganovic, a really strong weekend, debut weekend for him, P5. Christian Mansell went from P20 to P6. And John Bennett, P8 on debut as well from GB3. Skipped Formula 3, straight into Formula 2. P8 on his debut in the feature race. Aaron, who was the standout performer for you out of those guys? Because, it's all of them really, isn't it? They all did so well.
Yeah, it was not an easy circuit to walk into because it's a high-intensity, very physical track, high-speed corners. There's no let-up in the physicality of the Qatar circuit. It's designed for motorbikes, so it wasn't created with four-wheelers in mind. But credit to all of them because they've all got experience, obviously, of driving a racing car. But this level of racing car is obviously a step up from anything any of them have really driven before. Obviously, Ollie Gerth has been with us since Monza, when he stepped into that MP car in place of Franco Colapinto. But yeah, John Bennett, like you say, going from GB3, skipping Freca, skipping Formula 3, straight into a Formula 2 car, that is like double the size, double the power, double the downforce, maybe even more. It's just an enormous step. And yeah, I was speaking to some people, I said, it's not just a big step, it's jumping from the bottom of a mountain to the top of it, because it's enormous. And, he had some problems. I believe he stalled on the line and, was a lap down at one point. So to finish 8th is an incredible result, but also speaks to the craziness of the feature race. But Dino Beganovic, Christian Mansell, Ollie Gerther, all doing fabulous jobs to keep themselves sort of out of trouble. Maybe that's racing in Formula 3 where you've got 30 cars and you've just got to drive on your mirrors the whole time. So, yeah, credit to them because we saw some more experienced drivers in Formula 2 having some problems.
Definitely, we did, didn't we? Yeah, Dino Beganovic, I think, was the one that stood out for me. P4 in qualifying was unbelievable. Really, really strong result. Omi, who stood out for you out of those drivers? And your thoughts on, obviously, as I said, Dino Beganovic, P5 on his debut weekend. John Bennett, P8 as well. Who stood out for you?
Absolutely agree with Aaron, first of all, with John Bennett. Such a major step up as well from GB3, where he was the runner-up, taking 3 wins. But yeah, I have to agree. Dino Beganovic, a major standout as well. And I think a few people forget, but do remember his car broke down in the opening minutes of practice as well. That was his one and only session before qualifying. I think it was when I looked at the final classifications. I think he had like 3 laps on the board, it said, and he jumped straight into qualifying, got himself up to P4. Unfortunate in the sprint with a collision as well, or he was on his way to points, and then he got those points in the feature race. So a brilliant job by Dino Beganovic. So yeah, I think he definitely is a major standout as well, especially considering how he couldn't really get any running in practice.
Completely agree. Well done to all of those drivers. They're really standout performances. We've just got a poll on our Inside F2 Twitter at Inside F2 X. Sorry, I need to stop calling it Twitter, don't I? X. Our voting, or you guys are voting for your driver of the round. And our options were Gabriel Bortoletto, Paul Aron, Ollie Bearman, or another driver. And a few people in the comments, Benjamin Tukin saying Dino Beganovic. I completely agree. I think, Paul Aron, Gabriel Bortoletto, unbelievable performances. Ollie Bearman, we'll get onto him in a minute, but again, a good win in the sprint race. But for me, Dino Beganovic and John Bennett were the 2 standouts for me. They, jumping into a Formula 2 car for the first time this weekend, and really impressive on debut. I thought Ollie Gerth was going to get a podium at one point as well in the closing stages, but great performance by all of those drivers, and Henri Cordeal as well. I think it's fair to give him a shout out as well. P7 in the feature race, so really good performance by him as well. We mentioned Ollie Bearman briefly, that he won the sprint race. Obviously, Isaac Hadjar was in the lead going into the final few laps. Ollie Bearman clinched the win with 3 laps to go. Ollie, Aaron, what were your thoughts on Ollie Bearman's sprint race win? It was good performance, right?
Yeah, very good performance. Showed his maturity in that respect. Didn't panic about losing the lead early on. He knew that Hadjar would essentially come back to him and the opportunity would come to make the move. And he did. He didn't rush it. He didn't try and send a move that was never on. So I think with that performance, I know it's going to be weird seeing Bearman not finish even close to the top 10 in Formula 2 this season and still promote himself to Formula 1. But I think he's shown that all of the ingredients are there for him to be a Formula 1 driver. And what we have to remember is Formula 2 is essentially the finishing school for these drivers. And we've seen before, not necessarily drivers who win the series end up going on to Formula 1, and they do really well. I mean, Colapinto has been plucked out mid-season and has done brilliantly for Williams. So just because you've won the title doesn't mean you're a surefire success in the top level of Formula 1. But yeah, Bearman did a great job. I've actually just gone and voted for him on that poll you were referencing.
Of course you have. Ollie Bearman fanboy, Aaron Harper voting for Ollie. What a shock. What a shock.
It had to be done. I mean, obviously, Paul Aron and Gabriel Bortoleto arguably deserve the vote a bit more. But, you've got to stick to your allegiances, guys. And I'm sticking my flag on the Ollie Bearman hill here. And, I'll live and die by that. So I'm looking forward to seeing Ollie behind the wheel of a Haas next season. He's going to go really, really well. Esteban Ocon will be a great benchmark for him. Yeah. And I think it's really nice that he's got that moment to show once again, just before he leaves Formula 2, that he's up there with the top drivers. His season has been disrupted by he's had to step into the Formula 1 car 3 times. What a disaster. Honestly. If you'd have said to him, you're going to finish 14th in Formula 2, but you'll have done 3 F1 races and scored points in 2 of them, and one of them was for Ferrari, he'd have absolutely snapped your hand off for it. So, I don't think he cares one bit about his championship position right now.
That Mercedes hat in the background of your shot, that's very quickly going to be changing to a Haas hat next season, isn't it? So
it's going to be like one of those half and half football scarves. I'm going to get a Ferrari Lewis Hamilton one and a Haas Ollie Bearman one and stitch them together, and it's going to look hideous.
Yeah, looking forward to seeing that on a podcast next season. Omi, I want to speak about Zane Maloney because it was his last weekend in Formula 2 this weekend. 2 years championship push, I guess, this season kind of fell off a little bit, didn't it, towards the back end of the season? But a great start. He did the double, first driver to ever do the double on the opening weekend of the season back in Bahrain. What will his legacy be in Formula 2?
Well, first of all, definitely will be known as the boy from Barbados, I think we can say as well. That's definitely one thing. A very extraordinary driver, I think. Formula 3, winning the last 3 feature races in back-to-back as well. That was pretty extraordinary. And he also got close to that championship as well. Then hype around him coming into Formula 2. Not able to take a win in his rookie season, but shown lots of glimpses of pace. And then coming into this year, started the season off brilliantly. And it does seem like, from what I've observed of Maloney, he does usually like to come alive near the end of championships, especially. With Formula 2, of course, he had another season, meaning that he started it off on a high, but unfortunately it didn't really continue on for him. But a driver that showed pace all throughout the season, was unlucky at times, did have a few errors at the same time as well. But a brilliant driver who I'm sure will have a great career.
Completely agree. Aaron, thoughts on Zane Maloney, his Formula 2 career? And question, are we going to see a road in livery for the first time in Abu Dhabi? Because obviously Zane Maloney and Muratomo Miyata have driven with Sauber liveries and Toyota livery, respectively. It could be the first time we see a road in livery on Leo Fornaroli's car, who is not associated with a Formula 1 team.
Potentially, but then we did see Ollie Goethe didn't have the Red Bull livery until this weekend in Qatar. They didn't repaint that between Monza and Baku. So
would he drive in a Sauber livery though? Is he able to do that if he's not part of the Sauber Academy? I don't know whether he's able to do that.
That would be quite tricky, wouldn't it? So possibly get a road in car, or maybe it might just be like plain white or whatever, just one colour.
Black, maybe a plain black. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Interesting.
But yeah, I mean, the wildness in Formula 2 even extends to the liveries. We have to debate the liveries on this show because driver changes means the car's going to look different potentially because of their driver academy or their sponsors, and it's just it's the gift that keeps on giving, isn't it?
Yeah. But Zane Maloney, though, what are your thoughts on his? What legacy does he leave in Formula 2 for you, Aaron?
I think he'll have a strong legacy because obviously he's one of the very few drivers who's completed a weekend double. I believe only himself and Ollie Bearman in that club, so it's pretty exclusive. It's a shame that he wasn't able to build that as a springboard for a championship push, a true championship push, but that's Formula 2. You can have a fantastic weekend one week, and then the next weekend you can be scoring no points at all. And that's just the way it goes. Even the championship contenders have had that happen to them.
Ollie Bearman
it's great to see him moving into single-seater categories. Not everyone's a fan of Formula E. I like it. It's very crazy. So he'll fit right in there because he's well used to it with Formula 2. So, I think he'll do well in that series.
Lucas Di Grassi as a teammate as well, going right up against a bit of a legend of Formula E. So it's a great benchmark as well, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you can't ask for a much stronger, more experienced teammate when you move to a new series than Lucas Di Grassi. Jean-Eric Vergne has been around the block there several times. So, lots of experienced guys in Formula E that he can really show himself up against and see his true talent and potential fulfilled.
Absolutely. Qatar then, as a circuit, just a quick word on the circuit, because for me, I don't know what I expected going into this weekend, but actually, on reflection, I think it worked well, Aaron, didn't it, for racing? We saw some spectacular action all through the weekend. And for me, I think cars were able to follow better than I perhaps expected them to, which led to some really good racing, didn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I was surprised at how well the cars worked around the Qatar circuit. Like you, I had the same sort of reservation that the dirty air might be too much of a factor because it's such a high-speed circuit. But these cars were able to follow, and it was great. I mean, we saw with the change of regulations for Formula 1 in 2022 that cars were able to follow really, really well. But obviously they can upgrade their car, and obviously they're going to make it more difficult for people to follow them because they're mean like that. But in Formula 2, you don't have upgrades. You just have the car, and in you get and off you go. So, I think maybe Qatar will be, hopefully, on the calendar. It will be on the calendar next season, and hopefully we will have more chaos and action all over the place. And the cars were able to follow closely enough so they could challenge for overtakes. It wasn't easy. It wasn't a DRS drive-by. We don't like those. But that braking zone into turn one is still high speed. You've got to get the braking right, and you've got to be completely alongside. So you can't just send it because you will lose a front wing. So the drivers really had to think and calculate their way through that Grand Prix, through that race on Saturday and Sunday. And you had to manage the tyres as well. We saw Hadjar start on the mediums, couldn't quite make them last, had that spin, dropped to fourth. And even in the feature race, we saw drivers pushing the hard tyre, making sure it was lasting. And, it was a real lottery. So you didn't quite know what you were going to get in terms of beforehand, but I thought actually it worked really, really well for the series.
Yeah, no, I definitely completely agree. Omi, an agreement, I was going to say, an agreement that Qatar, good place for Formula 2 to go racing, and looking forward to that in 2025.
Yeah, absolutely. We were treated to do some fantastic action, and critically, not only at turn number one, but all over the place, all around the circuit. Of course, we had side-by-side corner after corner between Bortoleto and Aron, which I touched on earlier as well. And then you had Martins, who was another driver on the mediums, defending from Crawford in the sprint as well. Those battles continued all the way through. So, yeah, absolutely. We were battling all over the place in Qatar, meaning that it was just brilliant and wonderful Formula 2 that we always expect. So it lived up to expectations. So cannot wait to go there once again.
Victor Martins ended up being a bit of a roadblock in the sprint race, didn't he? He was, no one could get by, and Jack Crawford finally did get by, but it took him a good while, didn't it? Good weekend, a mixed weekend for Jack Crawford. Good sprint race, difficult feature race, but I enjoyed seeing Jack Crawford and Richard Verschoor go head-to-head in the sprint race in particular, because I think we've spoken about it really, haven't we, that Victor Martins, Jack Crawford, and Richard Verschoor could be the title favourites going into next season, Aaron.
Yeah, I mean, they're the three that we're really looking out for. I mean, there'll be a few other drivers wanting to put their hat in the ring for a title tilt as well, but it's not easy to put a championship together in Formula 2, and I think that's what makes championships such as Felipe Drugovich and Teo Pourchaire really stand out. They weren't those outrageous, sensational win, and demolish the opposition. They were constructed across the length of the season. Obviously, Drugovich taking a number of victories, Pourchaire winning only one race, the very first feature race of 2023, and then just securing a string of podiums and making it almost impossible for anyone else to catch him. So it's not easy. And we're seeing with Bortoleto and Hadjar how easy it is for the championship picture to swing towards you and then very quickly swing away from you. So those drivers will be concentrating over the winter and making sure they have the best mental capacity to facilitate a championship push. They're working with their teams. They're making sure they get the most out of the car, and they're understanding the tyres, and that they're in the best possible shape to deliver the maximum they can on each and every given race weekend.
Completely agree. That's Qatar then. That is the penultimate round of the season done. Get your popcorn out, because Abu Dhabi is going to be brilliant, isn't it? Really looking forward to that. Let's take a look at the championship standings before we go then. Gabriel Bortoleto, as we've said, leads Isaac Hadjar by half a point moving into the season finale. It's going to be a great finale in Abu Dhabi. Paul Aron's first win in Formula 2 means he moves up to third in the standings ahead of the departing Zane Maloney. Difficult feature race for Jack Crawford and Kimi Antonelli, but they remain 5th and 6th. And Richard Verschoor replaced Dennis Hauger at MP Motorsport this weekend. He moves above the Norwegian in the standings. They both round out the top 10. In the team standings, Victor moved one step closer to securing the team's championship this weekend. They remain top of the standings, 31 points, 31.5 points even, clear of the Campos moving into the last weekend of the season. MP Motorsport remain third in the standings, followed by Hitech and Prema. Trident, AIX and VAR round out the team standings. Okay, that's all we got time for today, but we want to hear your thoughts in the comments. Who wins the title from here? Is it Gabriel Bortoleto? Is it Isaac Hadjar? Or does Paul Aron come from an outside chance of winning the title to win it? Let us know your thoughts in the comments. We might even have a poll on our YouTube as well, so head to that and let us know. Really excited to hear your thoughts. But from me, Fraser Ford, and all of us here at Inside F2, we'll see you next time.